Hey guys, Central Cop 321 here. Something I want to talk to you guys tonight about is my life on the homestead throughout the whole FTO orientation phase. Uh, I've been finding out through watching different videos and talking to different people. Everybody has a different experience homestead-wise. There's a lot of similarities that people go through their, on the law enforcement side because a lot of things are uh, very set forward and very similar when people go through FTO. You got to learn certain things, you got to learn certain laws, and they all pertain to the state that you work in, or the local municipality, or the county that you work for. But some things that are very unique are the homestead part. Uh, if you're just of age and becoming a cop in your state, uh, you might not have the same home life that a 30-year-old or 40-year-old just getting into law enforcement or switching agencies would have. My situation is I moved from a different state. I moved up from up north in Ohio down to Florida. And in doing so, it created a big logistical challenge for me. I've got a family with 2 kids, and in that process, I had to figure out where I was going to stay down in Florida, whether or not my family was going to follow me immediately, or if they were going to wait a certain period of time or whatever, and then come down. My wife, she's got a job. She had a job up in Ohio. She still currently has it. She's up in Ohio, along with my 2 kids. So they're still currently there, and it's been 6 months now going on. Being that I moved down in January, and it's now June, so yeah, 6 months. And she has the kids. I've got the dog. She's also trying to pack everything up there from our house so we can get it sold or rented, depending on the housing market. Seems like it's going to be leaning more towards renting the house than selling it at this point, so we don't lose money. So there'll be more news to come on that later, when we finally come to a decision and what we end up having to do with the house. But when I moved, it was Christmas break for my daughter. She's in school, so there was another logistical problem, whether or not we were going to decide to pull her out of school mid-school year, or wait till she finished out the school year, then move down. So, my wife has a job, and it pays decent, so we didn't want to lose that income while I was going through the FTO portion, and we also didn't want to basically stress her out because we lost a huge part of our income. So we left her there with the kids working. The good thing with our situation is her side of the family is right there. So we reduced some of our costs by having her and the kids move in with her parents. Luckily, her mom would watch our kids for us when we're both at work, when I lived up there as well and worked. So they continue to do so, even after I moved. They've been very, very supportive so far of our endeavor to broaden my dream, if you will. So I'm very, very grateful. And right now, my wife and I have been talking. It's been very, very stressful on her. So if you're looking to move out of state and get into law enforcement, or you're in law enforcement, you're looking to move out of state, and you're married, think about your family. Law enforcement may be your dream, but is it worth moving out of state and putting your family through so much stress just so you can continue your dream, maybe in a different state? Or would it be best for your family if you were to stay in state and try and get into a different agency? Those are things you're going to have to weigh. And I would suggest talking it over with your family, not just your wife, but your kids. See how they feel. Luckily, we have our daughter, who's the only one that's old enough to really be affected by this, and she is handling it like a champ. She was excited because we're moving to Florida, so, we'll be close to Disneyland, or is it Disney World? I'm not really. It's Disney theme park is what we're close to, and Universal. She loves both of those theme parks, so she's excited about the opportunities that presents, and she's excited to make new friends, but she's really, really sad on the other side because she's not going to be able to see the other friends, at least as often as she would up in Ohio. What I'm getting at is, when you're moving out of state and you have a family, it's not just you have to think about. And I'm not saying that you particularly have overlooked that thought, but maybe you might want to put a little bit more weight into it if you haven't already, and think about how it's going to affect them. And then you're also going to have to think about how you're going to move. Are you guys going to move down at the same time, or are you going to move one at a time, like I am? We found that it would be less stressful for our family if we moved me down, got me established, got me a job, and well into it, so where I've got a good schedule, we know what my schedule is, and then move them down. Problem is logistically speaking, I got down here, I didn't want to get into an apartment, because then that may screw up what we have later. Not to mention, a lot of Florida apartment complexes, they have what's called a courtesy officer position, and if you sign in as a courtesy officer, you got to have a patrol car. I wasn't going to have that immediately, so we'd be paying out of pocket, again, added expense. So what we did was, I got with my friend who works down here already. His dad lives down here. His dad had a spare room. I got lucky. His dad said, yes, come on down, you can rent out the room. So I'm renting out the room, and I'm not paying as much as I would for an apartment complex. He was okay with me bringing my dog down. And he helps me with my dog. So I've been very blessed to have such a good friend. His dad is so good. And to have a family that supports my dream and helps me further and obtain a better portion of my dream, if you will, better location. Pretty much the location that I've always wanted to work in was Florida, primarily Central Florida, hence Central Cop. But so when you're looking into law enforcement, whether it be moving to change your agency or to get into the agency, think about how your home life will be affected. Now, I've spoke a lot more about married life and the transition and everything, but if you're single or you're younger in age, think about it too. When I was 21, if I were to have started as a police officer then, and wasn't in the military doing it already, I would have to probably think, do I want to stay in my home state, close to my family and be a cop? Do I want to work in a state that I really want to be in? But with that, I would have to try and find some way to move, pay for rent, pay for all my utilities, and secure my job. So how am I going to do that? You got to have a good support network. Make sure your support network is in place. It's not good to just have it if you don't have it in place and planned ahead and then jump into something. So my big points: look at your homestead, how that's going to be affected, your support network, if you have it, and if you do have it, make sure it's in place and plan ahead. Don't just jump into something that you don't know where you're going to land. Make sure you can see exactly where you're going to land and have everything in place before you get moving towards it. Otherwise, you're going to have a really, really hard transition, and it's going to create more stress than you're already going to need to be in throughout the process. I saw, through my FTO phase, 2 other individuals who had moved in-state but didn't really plan too far ahead and how it affected them. Myself and the 2 other people who started the FTO at the same day, I'm the only one that made it through the FTO program. The other one made it through all the way to the last week of FTO, the checkoff phase. And then the stress got to him. The other one made it to the last week of phase 3, and the stress got to him. And both of them had families, so their family life was so stressful that it affected their job life. That they had 2 enormous amounts of stress on their shoulders, and it forced them to have to decide, do I want to focus all on my job or do I want to focus on my home life? Well, unfortunately, their home life started to take a hit while they were focusing on their job. So they valued their home life more, knowing that they could go and find another job somewhere else doing something else or another agency, and chose their home life because they didn't want to lose their home life. Now, I would probably be in that same boat had I not planned ahead, and I'd be probably moving my butt right back on up to Ohio. But because I had a great support network, it was planned ahead well in advance. My wife and I had spoken about moving to Florida long before I even came down for an equivalency course. We'll talk about that in another video. And then I had planned out where I was going to stay, how much it was going to affect me financially, and I calculated in what my monthly salary would probably be so that I could budget. And it worked out fine. Now we're getting into the point where we need to figure out how to get rid of this house or get rid of the mortgage that we have to pay. Not that big of a deal, but my wife and I did realize towards the end of my FTO that we're most likely going to have to get her into a job, which would mean we're going to have to pay for daycare. So that's another added expense. But we're going to have to get her a job that pays for both the daycare and the ability to help us pay for all of our other bills. Not too many bills, but the other bills that we're going to have, because we're going to have the 2 cars. So we need to try and pay one down so that we can get rid of it. Unfortunately, it's going to be mine, my Challenger. I love my Challenger. I'll show you guys a picture of my Challenger at some point. But it's a 2013 Dodge Challenger RT. I absolutely love it, but I understand it's just a car. So let me know what you guys think of this video. Like always, let me know down in the comments, the likes, the dislikes, what you guys want to see, what you guys would prefer not to see. I think I'm going to try and do a good mixture of my home life, stories with my kids and whatnot, and my work life, and see how it compares, and so that you guys can see that not all cops are rude and have no life but being a cop. It'll also give you a little bit of insight into what cops do, especially the ones that have families. Right now I don't have my family with me, but I can show you or tell you about what I do as a semi-bachelor. So let me know, and take care, guys.